I was sitting near the principal's office. Minutes felt like hours, but then the door opened. I saw my mom and was stunned. She was devastated. I knew that fool Evans would tell her too much. I just hate him. Damn. What should I do now? I was coming home from school cursing everything. Lame day. Ed is a guy I've liked for a long time and he never even looked at me. He was discussing this League of Legends with the boys all the time. He's an esports player, you see. And he's too busy to hang out with girls. Mom was also late at work again. But never mind. I'll try to fix it. I came home and immediately took out my laptop. A tab with the dating site was already open on it. No, it's not for me. I liked Ed. I was running a page on the dating site on behalf of my mom. I just wanted so much for her to have something in her life besides work. But so far, all of my attempts failed. I direct messaged with several candidates, but they were all strange. To put it mildly, one of them was talking all day about the peculiarities of breeding guinea pigs. I clicked block without the twinge of conscience. But the next guy put me in an even greater stupor. That day, as usual, I was bored in math when suddenly a message from a dating site appeared on my phone. Having nothing better to do, I decided to answer the weirdo straight from school. But in response, I received a whole speech about the fractal similarity of the infinitely eternal. What? I could barely contain my laughter. The teacher even made a remark to me a couple of times. But imagine my surprise when I, returning from school, saw this idiot right in front of our house. Wait, how did he find out our address? He was standing with a huge bouquet of roses and the foil cap on his head. Apparently, he was catching direct signals from space. But then my heart fell to my feet. Mom's car came around the corner. Mom got out of the car and looked at the strange man in a foil hat with bewilderment. Suddenly, this weirdo came up to her, got down on one knee, and said that they were brought together by the goddess Lachesis herself, the patroness of fate. What is he talking about? He himself is some Lachesis. I was dying of shame. Mom just looked at me blankly. Here it seems this patron of cringe began to guess something. He handed my mom his phone with an open page of her profile on a dating site. Mom didn't understand anything for the first couple of seconds. But then she looked up at me and whispered, "Personal data column." No one but you could have known that, Liz. Why? I immediately blushed. Mom, no, you misunderstood everything. After the incident, Mom didn't talk to me for a week, and she also forced me to delete all profiles from dating sites. So how am I going to find her a mate now? In order to somehow distract myself, I decided to start a conversation with Ed at all costs. But then it dawned on me, if he talks about his League of Legends day and night, why shouldn't I discuss it with him? I downloaded the game for myself and sat with it until 6 in the morning. Now I played every night. Homework? I'll put up my grades. But now I could hold a conversation with Ed and his friends. You should have seen his face when I cut into their conversation about the support service. I was in a great mood finally. I had some progress in love life. But suddenly I was called to the principal. My grades were not perfect before, and now they completely dropped. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to upset my mom again. I had most trouble with history. The very next day, we were announced that we would have a new teacher in history. Maybe this was my chance. Yeah, as if this new nerd made us learn 5 times more. I only got F's in history and thought with horror about how my mom would find out about all of this. One day, I gathered my classmates at recess. What if we all stage a riot and this arrogant nerd gets fired? I said with a sly smile. But suddenly there was a tense silence. I'm out. Someone suddenly said, I like him. We have never been told about history so coolly before. I agree with you, another responded. Liz, it's bullshit. This teacher is a normal dude. I couldn't believe my ears. When did you start liking cramming some nonsense? I looked at Ed hopefully. But he just looked away. Really? Well, okay, I'll have to cope on my own. But Mr. Evans got out of it every time. I put tags on his seat, interrupted him in class, but all in vain. But when I hid all his notes in the hope that without them, he would finally disgrace himself, he read everything flawlessly from memory. Damn it. I already hated that Mr. Evans. But one day, I was asked to go to the principal. He said he was calling my mom to school. I wanted to warn my mom somehow, but she arrived in half an hour. She even took time off from work for this. I was sitting near the principal's door and trying to eavesdrop on what they were talking about. Mr. Evans was there. He would tell my mom a foul lie. Minutes felt like hours. But then the door opened. I saw my mom and was stunned. She was devastated. We drove all the way home in silence. I wondered what Mom was thinking right now. She didn't say a word all evening. Mom sat silently in the kitchen and cried. It was unbearable. Mommy, I learned all the history, all the names and dates. Just don't be sad. But I did not dare to approach. I couldn't sleep at night. Damn, if it wasn't for that stupid Evans, everything would be fine. Now I just had to take revenge on him. I wouldn't leave him alone until I got him mad. And when he finally got angry, I would record his swearing on a dictaphone and give it to the principal. Dismissal was guaranteed. I barely waited for the end of the lesson. When the last of my classmates left the office, I resolutely approached Mr. Evans. But he just looked at me sadly. "Oh, it's you," he mumbled. "I just wanted to see you. I didn't know Margaret was your mom." I opened my mouth in surprise. "Stop, Margaret?" Mr. Evans hesitated. He reluctantly told me that they, it turns out, studied at the same college, dated, and even wanted to get married. Hey, this is some kind of prank, right? But Mr. Evans was absolutely serious. He said he was even offended that Margaret, my mother, found someone else so quickly and even gave birth to a child that is me. I was just numb. My mom never told me about it. In the evening, I was very uncomfortable. Where was she? Why didn't Mom tell me right away that she knew Mr. Evans? Something was not right here. As soon as Mom returned, I immediately began to bombard her with questions. At first, she tried to turn away, but then she looked me straight in the eye. That look made me uneasy. She said, "Liz, I didn't want to tell you, but Mr. Evans is your father." What? Is this a joke? Mom, you're crazy. Mom just turned away sadly. No, it just can't be true. My mom quietly began to tell me more. It turns out that Mr. Evans didn't want children then, and Mom didn't agree to an abortion, so she thought the best solution would be just to run away and not ruin his life. Until today, no one else knew who my father really was. My jaw dropped. It turns out that I wanted my own dad to get kicked out of school. But it was he who gave me Fs. You know, Liz, I never stopped loving him. I realized it after I saw him again at school. Mom whispered, Well, for some reason, I wanted to cry and run away. But I looked at Mom. She looked even worse. I tried to pull myself together. Gathering my thoughts, I said, "I think you need to meet and discuss everything." Mom looked at me thoughtfully. "Don't you mind?" she asked. I silently shook my head. "Hey Mom, hurry up or you'll be late for my graduation." We got into the car. Today is not only a celebration on the occasion of the end of the school year. I'm supposed to be given a diploma for deep knowledge in history. And my dad, Mr. Evans, will give it to me. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you. Latex bodysuit was so tight that I couldn't breathe and the fishnet ties painfully dug into my thighs. I opened the dressing room curtain and waited in horror for my mom to say something, but she looked at me in silence, turned around and went somewhere. It was clearly over the top. But a couple of minutes later, she came back with a fluffy Playboy girl tail and said it would perfectly complement my look. It all started one strange morning. I was having breakfast when my mother ran into the kitchen yelling that she needed help. I was the only one who could save her. I finished my sandwich while my mom dragged me into the car. "What's going on?" She started the engine and asked for my college's address. What's the point? My mom was never interested in my studies. She was at the parties all day long. As soon as we drove away from the house, my mom asked me to pretend to be her friend. I think she fell in love with the guy from my college, and now she wants to seduce him. Mom, are you crazy? We pulled up to the college and stopped at the main entrance. Mom pointed a finger at one of the guys. Here he is. My classmate, Frank? It was like an electric shock. I've been in love with him for a year. We've only talked a couple of times, but it was enough to understand that we were soulmates. And now my mother and I are bidding for the same guy. You will help me, right? My mother's voice brought me back to reality. I hesitated. This is some kind of nonsense. No one will believe that we are friends. And then my mom blurted out that if I didn't agree, she wouldn't pay for my studies anymore. I could tell by her attitude that she wasn't joking after she gave birth to me at 17. My mom never tried to get an education. I didn't want such a fate for myself. Hesitantly, I still agreed to help her seduce Frank. Hopefully she'll switch to another guy soon. My mom always does that. Mom decided that I would take her to the party where Frank would be, and then Mom would do everything herself. Scrolling through college students' Facebook pages, I found out that one guy's parents have left, and he's going to have a Playboy-style party. My mother was delighted, but I was not in the mood for jokes. I hoped at the last that rabbit ears would be enough for the costume. At the set time, we're standing on the doorstep. I was burning with shame because of the tight bodysuit. But my mom was delighted. Some drunk guys were whistling to us from the other side of the street. I pressed the doorbell hard. Hurry up and let us in. But when my classmate Anne opened the door, it turned out that everyone at the party was in ordinary clothes. Am I being played? Anne explained that the other girls were too shy to come in revealing costumes, and asked what my friend's name was. Ma? I started but then stopped. Melanie. My mother gave me a reproachful look as she came in. I almost revealed her. While my mother hovered in front of the mirror, I decided to look around the house. Suddenly, I saw Frank sweetly smiling at some girl. My stomach clenched. I didn't know he had a girlfriend. Then my mother came back, and I thought that since she had noticed Frank with this girl, she'd decide to give up her crazy idea. But that didn't happen. My mother said that some youngsters are not a rival to her, and as soon as Frank went to get them drinks, Mom grabbed a burning candle from the table and went to that girl. Mom, stop! I saw her decisively holding the candle right to the girl's hair, and her luxuriant curls burnt into flame in an instant. Fortunately, the fire was quickly extinguished, but Frank's girlfriend almost lost her hair. My mom was happy that she got rid of her rival so easily. She was about to suck up to Frank, but I heard that the guys were going to call the police. We're leaving. Just what we need, the cops. My mother gave Frank a languid look and introduced herself. God, this is so embarrassing. The next day, Mom dragged me outside to follow Frank and accidentally meet him. Mom found his Instagram page and saw that he usually spends time playing gambling machines, and she took me there. Against the backdrop of teenagers in oversized hoodies, she looked too provocative in her tight dress. Everyone was looking at us, but my mother didn't mind. She was looking for Frank. Fortunately, he wasn't there. We were just about to leave when my mom called out. Here he is, and she dragged me somewhere. Frank was playing the dance platform. How cool he was dancing. I stared at him, and of course he noticed. Embarrassed, I approached him and immediately apologized for yesterday. But then my mom chimed in. She started bragging about how he could dance on dance platforms as well as Scott Pilgrim from the horror movie. What? Before I could protest, my mom grabbed my arm and immediately dragged me to the dance platform. I didn't dance at all, and neither did my mom. But my mom tried so hard. She was even sweating. And I was helplessly twitching, hoping to get a little bit into the rhythm. I thought it couldn't get any worse. But suddenly, during the next movement, my mom brushed against me and I lost my balance. Frank tried to catch me, but I fell and twisted my leg. It hurt so bad. He examined my ankle and said that there was no fracture. I just needed to ice it. My mom began to convince Frank that I was alright. Offered to go to another platform. But Frank refused. You should have seen my mom's face. She was burning with jealousy. I went to college the next day even though my leg still hurt. Frank asked me how I was feeling at every break. It was so nice. He said I was cool. He wished we'd talked before. He did soften me up. Could we really be something? But Frank immediately destroyed all my hopes. He asked if my friend was free for the weekend. It was like a bucket of ice water was poured over me. He had a crush on my mom after all. Fighting back tears, I said I'd pass on the invitation and said goodbye to Frank. My mom was preparing for a date all evening, sorting through dresses and thinking about what makeup would suit her best. I just wanted to disappear. My life was falling apart. In the morning, when she and Frank left, I burst into tears. What should I do if things worked out for them? Pretend to be my mother's friend until I'm old? No, I can't do that. Frank may not have chosen me, but he needs to know the truth. I tried to call him, but the phone was offline. Then I began to write to my classmates. Maybe someone knew the address of Frank's cottage, but no one answered. I was already desperate, but one girl answered me, and I immediately called a taxi. As soon as I arrived, I immediately rushed to knock on the door. No one opened it, but I kept going, and finally, Frank looked out, surprised. At the back of the house, I saw my mother sitting carelessly with a glass of wine in her hands. It made me so angry. There was nothing left to lose, so I turned to Frank and told him the most important thing. My mother was visiting him, and I had been in love with him for a year. I was relieved to admit it. How unbearable it was to carry this burden. Mom jumped up from the couch, throwing her glass on the floor. She shouted that I was a traitor and ran into the street only in dress. Frank was taken aback at first, but quickly pulled himself together and said that we needed to find her. It could be dangerous in the forest. After all, we were quite far from the city. We immediately went in search of her. I was so excited. I just wanted to tell the truth, but it turned out I just messed it up. Why did Frank react so calmly? Suddenly, he said that he had known the truth for a long time. Someone from college recognized my mom at the party, and rumors spread fast. At first, it was just fun for him to watch us, but soon he really liked me. But for my mom, he had a special plan. Frank wanted her to meet his father, because she was definitely his type. I felt so ashamed that I thought my whole face blushed. We walked through the forest for a long time and called for my mom, but she was nowhere to be found. We were already cold ourselves when we suddenly came to an old bus stop. And there was Mom! She was sitting there in her little dress and was already fainting from the cold. I ran to her and hugged her. It was great that she was okay. Frank immediately gave her his jacket, and we called a taxi. We went back to the cottage. We were met at the door by a polite and handsome man, Frank's father. He was surprised to see us like this and said we could use some hot tea. I even thought that he would really be a great match for my mother. But my mother, when she looked at Frank's father, was taken aback. Without taking her eyes off him, she whispered, "Is it really you?" Then she slowly shifted her gaze and said, "Lily, this is your father. Say hello." I could feel my legs faltering. I think I just found out that I had been in love with my own brother for a year.